The country's largest mental health and addiction center says the social effects of pot will be less harmful if it's legal. Michael Serapio is in our newsroom looking at the arguments. So what exactly is CAMH suggesting, Michael?
Well, as you say, Sahana, a bit shocking for some people here. CAMH released the statement overnight, basically saying it is time to legalize the use of marijuana. But with some important provisos here, they say the current system just doesn't really get people into treatment centers. It also does not prevent them from being harmed by the drug. And therefore, they say legalization is the first step. In fact, they say this legalization must be governed by strict regulations, that it ensures that it is not sold like other commodities. What do they mean by that? Well, essentially what they are saying is that in addition to legalizing it, it needs to be a government monopoly that sells marijuana. They also say that the supply of marijuana needs to be limited, and this legalization has to come with some very targeted prevention measures, among them programs that targets young people as well as people who have a personal or family history of mental illness. They say in doing so, you would actually reduce the harm of the drug, because right now criminalization, they say all that does is it drives people away from programs that can actually help them wean themselves off of this drug if they're using it for recreational purposes. And they also say that it is troubling that people are getting away from programs because Canada, in terms of countries around the world, is one of the highest rates of users of marijuana in the world.
And how many Canadians use pot?
Well, this may surprise people as well, and for that, let's turn to this information graphic sent in by CAMH. They say that of Canadians, 40% of Canadians have used marijuana at least once in their life. In the past year, 10% of Canadians admit to using marijuana. And in the past year as well, 20% of Canadians between the ages of 15 and 24 admit to using it. So yes, they say it is a high rate, and they say if you want those rates to go down, you need to legalize the drug and bring with it treatment and prevention programs.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
If you'd like to get more on this story, just go to our website. You'll find an in-depth look at the call to legalize marijuana by the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH. Just go to cbcnews.ca.
Canada's largest mental health and addiction treatment and research centre says the current system of marijuana control is just not working. The Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto is now calling for cannabis to be sold through a government-controlled monopoly. However, the group stresses there should be strict restrictions on age and availability. Joining us to talk about this is Jürgen Riem, Director of Social and Epidemiology Research at CAMH. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You are saying that the current system isn't working, and you're not saying toss it, you're saying a different system should be in place. Can you describe what you think needs to be in place and why?
Well, first about the current system. It is not working because large parts of the Canadian society, especially adolescents and young adults, still get cannabis, and we have no way to regulate what kind of cannabis and how they get it. What we propose instead is to go with a government monopoly, something like the LCBO system, where people could get legal cannabis, where a minimum age could be enforced, where we could control the potency of cannabis, the THC content, and where we would be sure that there's a separation of markets between the legal and the illegal market.
So the potency, for example, the quality control would be key to this.
The potency is one of the very keys to our proposal. At this point, people who buy cannabis do not know what they're getting and do not know how this cannabis will affect them.
As you know, right now, even with alcohol, even with cigarettes, you have to be of a certain age to buy it, but kids, teenagers still manage to get their hands on these things. So would that really change?
Yes, it would change. We know that the LCBO system has actually avoided and reduced some of the availability for alcohol. We will never be able to 100% avoid that underage people would get their hands on legal substances, but the legalization of a substance will make sure that we can reduce the overall numbers.
How would this compare to what they do now in Colorado?
It's a huge difference. in Colorado, they decided that they should do legalization of cannabis where they actually also allow commercialization. That means cannabis can be obtained at every corner, so to speak. There's advertisement for cannabis. The TV shows are full of cannabis ads. Radio is full. And so overall, we find a hype around cannabis and a very high availability, which we would like to avoid.
All right, we do have to leave it there. We're out of time. We have Jürgen Rehm joining us. He is from CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto. Thanks for joining us, sir.